Got it. Hold on. Okay, we're good. Sorry about that. We're good to go, guys.
Okay, this is the April 11th Forestation Board meeting. And before our connection cut out, the board did review the minutes from March 14th and they were approved. So we're ready to move on with our next topic, which would be the mayor's update.
Well, I guess there's never been a more important time to have a forestation board in view of the events of a week ago. So the numbers I've heard about the number of trees lost on the golf course has varied, but it's clearly over 100. I've heard as many as 170 plus. I've heard 150. I've heard 120, but it's a bunch. And extrapolating that to the whole city, I don't pretend to know what the number is, but I'm guessing it's 500 or more trees that have been lost in the city. So it's a big deal, and something that I know you all are going to work on. And I feel like Linda and I talked briefly one day about an inquiry that she had received from a resident about getting help from our arborist. And I think the more I thought about that, I think I gave the wrong answer to Linda. And I'm not sure Andrea is the person to do this, but I think the forestation board, we ought to think about the forestation board stepping forward and advising people on types of trees, location of trees, private homeowners, advising them on what kind of trees to get, where to plant them, that sort of thing. Because people don't know. They don't know either of those things. And I'm a lay person. I know a little more than a lot of people, but only because I've come to these meetings. So I think that's something for this group to talk about, and talk about how they can reach out to our citizens and provide support to them. The other item I want to mention and talk about, at least briefly, is the work that we've been doing to amend the ordinance for the forestation board. And so the amendments that I had been working on, the rationale for those amendments was really twofold. One was to give the forestation board support from the city in enforcement. And it seemed to me when I became mayor, the enforcement piece of forestation was dysfunctional. And it may still be dysfunctional. That's not the fault of forestation board. It's the fault of all of us. So the goal of the ordinance of changes that I'd worked on with the forestation board and others, and that we presented to the council last fall, but it's gotten pushed off on a sidetrack, unfortunately, was to give support to the forestation board so that we could effectively and reasonably enforce our ordinance. And I feel, as I say, I think we've failed at that in the past. I think we're doing better now, but we've got a ways to go. If we could codify these changes, the forestation board would be, I think, on a more solid footing going forward. I'm told, what I've understand is that the council's committee and the forestation board have gone down a different path, and they've approved and endorsed an alternative ordinance put forward by Sandra and others, which is fine. I don't care who writes it, but I asked for the rationale behind those amendments, and I was told, well, we're not going to protect historic trees anymore. And I didn't know that was a problem. You know, I knew enforcement was a problem, but I didn't know historic trees were a problem. So if there's a rationale for a different version of what we had worked on, somebody would articulate that to me. That'd be helpful. I don't get a vote unless there's a tie, but I have a vote at the end of the day, and that's to veto an ordinance that I don't like. And I don't like what I've seen so far.
I don't think we're really ready to vote on anything yet.
I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the council.
Okay.
My veto is of the council's action when it acts. And the path that we're on is not one that I'm happy with.
Okay, I guess one comment I would add to just the conversations that are ongoing, and the council special committee is looking for some further, I guess, consolidation, not really one version or the other, but how can we address both in a way that's constructive? And I think Frank was going to try and clarify some of his ongoing concerns, and I don't think that information's been distributed to the committee yet, and I haven't seen anything.
Well, and my comments are more general, and it is if the version they're working on and that you all seem to be supporting is better, or if there's a rationale that supports it, somebody just needs to come to me and talk to me about what the rationale for it is, because I don't get it. I just don't get it. And I don't mean to sound upset, but I'm pretty tired of this. I mean, we've been dealing with it it's not your fault. Nobody on this call's fault, but we've been dealing with it for 5 months. We had a pretty good version in the beginning. It got better as we went along. And the next thing I heard, it was not the version that was being supported by the committee. So I may have this all garbled and all wrong, but that's what I was told.
Yeah, and I mean, I heard said that the Forestation Board were in agreement with this version. That's news to me. I didn't think I'll just say personally, I didn't think I was any part of saying that I thought that, a version different than what was, what was talked about,
Well, and
weeks ago, months ago, really.
Probably the best thing to do is not to try to wrestle that to the ground in this meeting, because there's more immediate problems with the tornado.
Right.
But I think for Linda and Herb and David Holmes and Frank Fulcher and for Sarah Hines to put their heads together and come up with something. And I don't care who's involved. Sandra can write the whole thing. That's fine. But somebody's going to have to explain to me the rationale for what's being done. It's got to be more than we're no longer going to protect historic trees.
I think that's more than fair, and we need some more conversation to really see what we are going to bring together.
Okay, well, let's bring it together, because
Okay.
we've been talking for an awful long time. And I know about ready, fire, aim, and I know about we're not anywhere close to ready, fire, aim. We're ready, aim, ready, some more, aim, and we're never firing. So we need to get on with it.
Mhm.
And this is back to the more immediate issues of all the tree damage. And there has been, tremendous work done by Ron and his crew and different contractors throughout the city. How does that impact the city budget and things going forward that might involve forestation?
That's a very good question, Linda, and I probably should have addressed that. It's an expensive deal. We're going through this unbudgeted. So we're going to, and John Carter's on the call and can address this as well. But we had proposed an amended budget that I think received a first reading at the last council meeting. And that's what we'll probably do, is withdraw that and present at some point in the future, present a new amended budget to take into account the extraordinary expenses that we've incurred, which appear to be, and John, you help me. I was going to say approaching $200,000. Is that right? John, we're not hearing you. John, we're not hearing you.
His mic's turned off.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, John, you're on mute.
I didn't even know it.
John, you're on
There he
mute.
goes.
He's not even looking up. We can't hear you.
Maybe he didn't hear us. He just-
Okay, I'm sorry. No, I had somebody in my office.
Okay, well,
Can you repeat?
yeah, the question is, Linda asked the very good, very pertinent question that I had not addressed in my remarks, which was the expense that we've incurred because of the tornado. And it's unbudgeted. And my comment was that I thought we were probably approaching $200,000.
That's our best guess at the moment. I'm actually got Amy Rose here I'm talking to right now.
Oh, okay.
About invoicing, but that's the one, so the unknown, we already know that Greenscapes is 180,000 and change. We know that we will be getting bills from the cleanup that occurs on Monday, of which, based on our best estimates, should be less than $20,000. And then there's a disposal fee at the landfill. And I would say that could be part of that same $20,000. So I do think $200,000 right now is a good guess.
And so John, I think I'm correct, and you helped me with this, that our plan is to withdraw the previously presented amended budget, and in May, we're getting some background noise from somebody.
I'll be right back.
You're fine.
To present probably at the special meeting later in May, not even the May meeting, but a special meeting later in May, an amended budget, so we can pay our bills.
Correct.
So we can incur expenses, but we just can't write checks until we get a new budget in place.
That would be the safe move.
And Linda, I think that those are probably all the expenses. Hopefully those are all the expenses we're going to have. So it's basically the cleanup that's already occurred. That's Greenscapes, a little bit of overtime for the city, for Ron's staff, and perhaps some of the police officers. And then the bigger expense is Greenscapes, and then this big cleanup with a national contractor on Monday where they're going to come through and pick up trees and yard waste that's at the curb on Monday.
Well, so we will have some additional expenses roll in, like street signs and things that we're still discovering. But
yeah.
Well, you know, the medians, you know, what the utility trucks had to get around, you know, there's a fair amount of work to bring more earth in, and whether they get seeded or not.
We got a plan. We got a plan for that.
Yeah, we're considering an alternative approach to that, Herb, but that's exactly right. This was there's an awful lot to this. You know, we're so lucky. Not a single person was injured, which is extraordinary when you think about it.
Yeah.
But the damage to the trees and to the houses is pretty substantial.
Now, will we be able to maintain the existing forestation budget activities? Or will those have to be reviewed as well?
Well, we're in a new budget cycle effective July 1. We're going to have a new budget July 1, and everybody's going to be affected. We're just going to have to figure out what we got, what we've got, and what we can afford. The goal will be to maintain forestation and parks, you know, at the same level or a little better because of inflation. But there are no guarantees till we get a budget in front of the council and the council acts.
Okay, because I had an idea on how to stretch the ArborFest dollars, and I don't know if this is the time or if we want to get into it a little later.
Well, I have a question. Will you need to put some additional funds for planting trees for next year that we lost this year in the tornado?
I would hope so.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I hope so too.
Yeah.
If we've lost between 500 and 1,000 trees, we clearly are going to want to replant some city trees and help our residents plant trees.
Right. Okay.
And one other thing that's important to mention, federal funds like the windstorm back in in March that we had where the pavilion was damaged. We got federal funds in that situation because the damage was actually greater citywide and statewide than it was from this tornado. So to get federal funds to help with all these expenses, the county and the state have to meet certain thresholds. The county, Jefferson County, has to have 3,600,000 or some number north of 300.
3.6 million.
Yeah, the city has to be over 3 million. I think it's 3.6 million. The state actually has to be over 8 million.
Hmm.
And Amy, who's there meeting with John, who's been terrific, who's with Metro Emergency Services, said that we're not close to either one of those numbers.
Mm.
So it seems to me, based on what we've heard thus far, to be unlikely that we would have federal help at the end of the day. Now we're gonna spend the money. We would spend it with or without federal help. It's just we're not going to get reimbursement on the back end like we did back in March.
We might be able to get some help from Cindy Sullivan, who's executive director of Trees Louisville. Their goal, Metro's tree canopy now runs about 39%. Their goal is to get it up to 45%. And part of the activity is planting trees. So we might reach out to her to see if we can get some trees for planting in the Prospect area for next year.
That's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. I'm glad it's on your list. And Don, thanks for bringing that up.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
The government's not going to help unless we reach a certain threshold of expense.
The federal government won't help
FEMA.
Unless we meet these thresholds. And it doesn't, as things stand right now, it doesn't look like either Jefferson County or the state, both of them have to meet their particular threshold. And it looks like neither one of them are going to. And it's not damage to people's homes. It's damage to government infrastructure, and it's government expense with overtime. And, you know, the greenscapes thing would be a qualifying expense. Overtime to our public works would be, fixing our street signs would be a qualifying expense. But the fact that there's a home that's been destroyed or the roof came off a home doesn't qualify.
Or a business. It's strictly government.
Right.
Overtime for the police and fire responders, that would be included.
Incremental cost.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and to put a fine point on the mayor's report, I apologize for being so strident about the ordinance, and it's really to a large extent a side issue. The main issue for the Forestation Board to deal with in the immediate future is recovering from the tornado and the damage to the tree canopy.
Well, I think ordinance is important. It's been going on long enough too.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Anything else from Doug?
Nope, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your
Thank you.
patience.
Good to hear from you. Andrea.
Well, if there was any good news for you all, it looks to me that and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like either all or most of the young trees that the Forestation Board has planted over the last several years made it through okay, which is a good thing. So I think we still have those intact, which is really good. The one thing I wanted to check is, and I had talked to Linda about this last week, there's residents that have ordered canopy trees. And so the trees are ready to be planted, but Linda and I discussed last week holding off on doing that till residents have enough time to get some of their cleanup done or whatever cleanup they need to do prior to getting a new tree. So they are dug and being held at the nursery, and the planter can plant pretty much whenever, weather permitting, whenever you want them planted and the residents are ready for them. So I don't know if you'd want to send an email out to them whenever you think it's appropriate, maybe next week. What do you think? To
Was
see if,
thinking maybe next week and to give everybody a heads up that that's when we will be out one day next week, weather permitting.
yeah, okay. And then maybe you could also check with them at that time, whenever you decide to send it out, that they still have their flags in place,
Yes.
or if they need new flags or whatever. The utilities have already been called in, and they were all, as far as I know, clear on that, so that's a good thing. I know one of the, I mean, I don't know the resident personally, but that one gentleman, is his name Gallagher? I don't know I don't have the list in front of me. that
Yeah,
lives
there
on
is a Gallagher on
Shadwell. He
Adwell
looked
Lane.
like
Yes.
he had one tree I saw that was cut, big tree that was cut, had been cut down and removed from his yard. So I'm assuming that must have been tornado damage. I don't know, but, so that was one thing. I do think it's a good idea to check with Cindy Sullivan. Occasionally I see her at professional meetings, and the next one that comes up, I'm not sure when it is, but you know, they do have a good program. I think the thing is we need to get Prospect on their list of neighborhoods to offer trees to, because it seems to me, I'd have to check, but they have certain zip codes. I know I saw earlier before this happened for this spring, they had certain zip codes, I think, that they were willing to plant trees in, or residents could get trees. So anyway, what else? I know there's been so many tree issues, but we ought to, and maybe now's not the appropriate time, but we need to continue to not forget to keep working on getting that dead white pine at the apartments off, like Montero or
That's
off
by
of,
Gunston. Mhm.
Gunston, yes, removed. I noticed it survived the tornado, so it would have been maybe a blessing if it had come down. But
Well, the mayor asked me to meet with the code official to scull that out. So
Yeah,
I have
and
not done that.
I
I'll
think
get with
Mike-
him.
Yeah, and I think Mike Thomas is going to be it's going to be pretty good for you all to work with, the new code enforcement officer. This is sort of not put off by forestation matters quite as much as his predecessor might have been. So
great.
I think he'll be good for her and the whole board to work with.
That's good. That's great. The only other thing, until you want to discuss, you know, ways to get residents to, you know, offering more trees and so forth, would be that when Herb was saying the city list of trees that's available, that was kind of modeled after a prior list before I came, and I revised that, and we eliminated a few trees that were now not good to plant for various reasons over the last several years. But we could develop a list that would be, you know, like good street trees or just good residential trees that are available in the nursery trade in Louisville, you know, because not all of them, certainly, that we might come up with a list of, are not all available. So, and that availability changes, but there's a lot of newer cultivars and species of trees that have been developed primarily with an emphasis on good street trees. So there's a lot of newer trees available for that use and for homeowner use. So, you know, I can just throw that out there until we discuss it further.
Well, that ties in with something we talked about at the last meeting. That was updates for our brochure. And that could be, you know, some editing of a notes that, this one's going to be easy to find. This one would be a good street tree. And we also had requests to note which ones are natives, because that's important to some of the residents as well. So a revision to our list, I think, could be very meaningful at this time.
Right. Well, it may be a different list,
Or
I mean, it
two
may just
lists.
be a different list for a different purpose,
Mm-hmm.
but, or for a new, specifically for a new brochure, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
that you might want to do.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Anything else, Andrea?
No, not right now. I mean, I'm sure you all are overwhelmed with the amount of tree damage and other structural damage. So, I'm sorry you all are going through this, but, like the mayor said, thank goodness nobody was hurt. That's really good.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Now that kind of feeds into, we've been talking about all the tree problems and all the damage, and what sorts of things can we do to increase replacements and make it easy for residents to access trees. And of course, Arborfest has been a big success. And I think this year, probably more than ever, it could be very important. And so one of the things that comes to mind is, typically the budget is about $1,600. So, we spent, we bought 50 trees at roughly $20 a piece, and they were 3-gallon trees. That's a pretty good deal for us. And then there was some money for tree guards. So what happens, and I don't know if the city can do this, is if we were to order 100 trees and got some bigger species mixed in there, would that work? And the way we could do this is, what happens if we ask for $10 a tree? So we're still in the same ballpark. Okay. I checked the prices today. A 2-gallon tree of a dogwood at Lowe's is $58. A 2-gallon magnolia at Home Depot is $54. So to get a tree that we're offering for $10 might be a way to approach that, if that's something legally we can do.
Value it more if they have to put some of their own money
Right,
into it.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, we charge them 20 and buy more trees.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, let's do 20.
And, just, make it clear in our communication that, because we have a need for so many trees and we've had such great expenses that, this is a way to help get us more trees reasonably.
Hey, that's a great idea, Linda.
Well,
I agree 100% with Don. That's really exciting, Linda. I think you're right on the mark. I think we need to be thinking about larger numbers, and that's in terms of the number of trees. And of course, that means more expense. But I think our citizens, what I like to say is we're not the wealthiest people in the world, but this is a prosperous community, and people can chip
I
in.
think we could come up with $10 instead of a cup of coffee or something like that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The only I think it's a great idea, but I think what we need to do also is promotion of this.
Yep.
I think we need to really, every opportunity to promote this to the homeowners association, and like we're going to have we're going to have all the festivals this summer, and I think something relating to this being somehow being signage or something. So I just, we've had times where not that many people came to get trees. And so we want to make sure that they, we have the market for it. So.
Right. And I was also thinking to support that we were going to have this larger quantity available because of these terrible circumstances, is that, we start putting something in the newsletter right now that we know everybody's probably lost something and they would like to see more, and just every month have something building up to this, and
Great
anything else
idea.
we can do. And if we can make posters, we can get one put up at Kroger, or we can get one put up at the hardware store just to say the trees are coming.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I had 2 other thoughts, and one of them would be, and we'd have to, check availability and so forth. But after, you remember when there were trees planted in Heritage Creek Park after the MSD
Mm-hmm.
line went through. And those came from a wholesale outfit up near Indianapolis called Woody Warehouse. And as I recall, those were all container grown trees, but they are larger size than, seems to me they were like 1.5 inch caliber. I don't know if I don't think Ron can hear me right now, but they weren't as big as what you're offering in your canopy program, but they were bigger than what you offer for Arborfest, the 3-gallon size. But they look, it might be a source for getting bigger trees that are that, you know, that could be purchased, and then the residents we'd have to find out what the cost is, and I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but that's a source where maybe residents, you know, you could, if you had some opportunity of having them come and pick them up, you know, like you do Arborfest, it would be a way for them to get a little bit bigger trees. There's also, I'd have to make some phone calls, so I don't want to promise this could happen for sure, but like one of the owners, the owner, for instance, of Abrams Nursery, I don't know whether he would do this. Usually the wholesale nurseries around us, the smallest trees they offer are sometimes 1.75 inch size, and then 2 inches, and then bigger. But there might be a way, the amount of tree loss that you've had, that I could see if I have a really good relationship with him, and I don't know if he would be interested in selling trees that are a little bit smaller that maybe residents could handle easier, like maybe 1.5 inch caliper, for instance. I mean, those are still, you know, they're going to be, depending on the species, they're going to be maybe 5 to 6. They might be, I don't know, 7, 8 feet tall, 6 to 8 feet tall. You know, the canopy trees are more in the range of maybe 10 to 13 feet tall. They're 2 inch trees. But anyway, maybe there's a grower that, and I'll have to think more about it, but that, you know, we could get to, that would be willing to offer some smaller size trees. They don't normally do that, but they, maybe if you know, there was enough interest from residents, or we could gauge if there was interest, that they would do that.
And that might be a good question if we reach out to Cindy Sullivan to see what contacts she has, if that is one of our potential.
Right. Well, I have other contacts too. I just know that that's a local, I mean, that's one
They've
that's,
done good work
you
for
know,
us in the past. Yes.
well, yeah, I do. I would deal with nurseries all over, but that's just one that I just think pretty highly of, that has has reasonable great quality trees for a reasonable price, wholesale. So, I mean, there's also River Farm there in Goshen. I don't know if did they have damage in Goshen from the tornado too? Do you all know?
Not like we did.
Uh-huh. So, I
They-
mean, they
they-
have acres and
No,
acres.
It went over
nurseries.
toward Buckner, Crestwood.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. So
Buckner had some damage.
they might have stuff too, and I could contact them as well. It's just a thought I'm
I
throwing
think
out there.
I think it's good thinking. Yeah.
Just look at whatever options we can get to get some more trees and
Right.
get them reasonably. Sounds great.
There's one other related item, and I think with Trees Louisville for a while, they were offering to rebate $30 to an individual who purchased a tree from any source and then sent them a copy of the receipt. They also had a computer program where the homeowner could locate his home and the type of tree he was proposing to buy or plant. And basically the program would say, oh, it's too close, or it's great, or whatever, as related to that specific property and that specific tree. And
Right.
perhaps that's something we could, Trees Louisville, to discuss with us.
Yeah, I think they do that, or they have done it.
Okay. Another good idea. Thank you. We've already talked about the ordinance review and, that we're going to move forward with that and get it done. And are there other topics anybody would like to bring up?
Yeah, let me
Said
ask you.
originally, are there several street trees in Sutherland that came down. Are we going to notify them that they have to be replaced? I mean, it was an act of God that they came down, but
Are these on like public roadways, Connie?
yeah, between the street and the sidewalk.
But not in somebody's front yard?
No.
Okay.
And I thought I had understood from previous discussions that we maybe don't want to replace things that are right on the street, that we'd want them to be a replacement tree, but maybe in a different location, like inside the front yard.
Right.
So the developers all came, this is the way, what I've interpreted from these meetings. And I feel like I've been taking a graduate level course from Andrea, but the developers came in and put trees all lining the street, between the street and the sidewalk, in the few areas where there are sidewalks, because it looks so pretty when you drive in. You have flowering trees that look pretty but are disasters down the road.
Right.
And that maybe when we replace some of these, we replace them 6 feet into the yard over at an angle instead of up right on the street.
Walking
Andrea,
so hot when you're walking along and there's no shade, and it's
Well,
90.
you can achieve both by planting. You should be, in most yards, be able to plant back into the front yard, still have trees canopy over the sidewalks of the streets, if you plant the right species. And again, that's another opportunity for educating residents on, a particular need, or the people that want to replace trees like that.
Right.
What would be the best, types of trees to do that with.
Speaking of, well, maybe that, but I noticed in Honey Creek Estates, in the median where those big trees went down.
Uh-huh.
Does Honey Creek Estates take care of their own trees, or seems like that's what they did in the past?
I think that's on the city, but Ron, I don't know, Ron, if you're listening, you're muted.
I think most
Ron,
of it's been city.
Ron, you're on mute.
Sorry, too many things going on at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had if it was on an island, it's our tree.
In the estate section. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Which we got rid of a bunch of pine trees. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. If there was a real interest, and I noticed there was a lot of pine trees that got lost, evergreens. If residents, if there was a big call for replacing evergreens, you could have one planting season. You could maybe we could find some smaller evergreens that could be offered. But the question is, how do you distribute them, and can people pick them up? And you have to, it's hard to gauge how many people are interested in that kind of thing before you go out and purchase them.
Yeah.
For giving out or selling or whatever you decide to do. But
maybe try to gauge the interest first, and then
Right.
go out and acquire the trees. Well, and I've got to make 2 calls, and I've got a 3 o'clock meeting. But let me just say, I really appreciate the work and the spirit of this group. And this group, there probably hadn't been a time in the history of Prospect where this group would be more important than it is right now. So Andrea, your help, and Linda, your leadership, and everybody else on the board, you got my full support. And I would say, as far as budget goes, get the numbers together, get the number of trees that we want, the goal, the cost, how citizens can help contribute to that, and just come forward with some ideas, and we'll do the best we can on funding as much as we can.
Okay.
that sounds good.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody. I'm gonna
right.
check out right now, unless you all got something else for me.
No, we're ready to wrap up, I think.
No, but thank you.
Doug, should you and Herb and I stay on the line just a minute to clarify what we were talking about earlier about the transportation meeting tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so, but let me, I think what I'd like to do, Don, I'm actually at home and have to get back to City Hall. I'll call you from my car, if that's okay,
Okay,
in just a few minutes.
okay.
But back to the what the mayor just said about setting some goals, because we're all doing some good talking, but now how about calling a little work session, Chairwoman Linda, that I realize it'd be a public meeting, but let's have a session where we can sort of have some data on the bigger trees, what their cost could be, and so we can have a game plan to present to the city.
Sure, I think that would be helpful.
Let me chime in real quick. You're talking about a meeting, it just brings to mind, I need to let you all know, I'm actually taking a vacation for a couple weeks, beginning May
What?
1st. There's never a good time, trust me. But to that, I was wondering if you all could figure out your meeting schedules, and since it's if it's a regular meeting, you could, change up your agenda from what I publish, but I would like to be able to, publish your all's meetings before I leave town.
It's
And I'm gone from
usually,
the 1st to the 17th, basically, 1st to the 20th is the first day I'm back in the office.
our meetings are normally the second Thursday of the month, unless there's some out of the ordinary circumstances.
I'll go ahead and
So
prepare
our
some
next
paperwork
meeting
based on
would be
that.
May 9th.
Okay. That'll help.
Okay, good deal.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I don't think so for me.
All right, thank you all, and I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
Can I say one more thing about street trees?
Of course.
I don't know whether you guys walk or not, but I do. And when you walk in the summertime and there's no shade, it's broiling hot. And you get under a tree that someone's planted and it's like 20 degrees, or it feels like
Right.
20 degrees less in temperature. So I really appreciate it when people have street trees. When we moved here, there were a lot more street trees than there are now in Sutherland. A lot have been removed. So that's all I'm going to say.
Well,
Okay.
so Connie doesn't get the last word. I know this is a detail, but you know who really likes our little trees? Our deer.
Oh, yeah.
So we really need to stress to anybody who takes trees that when they get rotten, they love these little Arborfest trees. They love them, and so they got to be protected right away. So that's I think we need to educate the folks that get these trees, and so they actually make it.
Well, that might also be an advantage to figure out a way to offer not only those with the deer protection in mind, but also some other, I'm going to say like medium-sized trees, for lack of a better word, but something that is a little past the 3-gallon size that looks like more of a tree and maybe could withstand a little more, that's a little hardier to
Yeah.
go in. But I think we're going to have to gauge some interest here, and it's probably too, I don't know, you all live there and have friends that live there, so you know before I would, but when it's the time to find out.
Yeah, we need to maybe do a little walking. If somebody's on the board that really likes to walk, do some walking to these folks that have pretty good damage and actually see if they would be interested.
Yeah, that might be a way to do it.
Little survey.
A survey, that's one aspect, and to also maybe send the survey out to all the HOA groups.
Right.
Yeah, but you know how many surveys you get. Yeah.
Well, if it's not real long and maybe it's.
Yeah, okay.
It would be nice to get some of
worth
those
it, but
cards.
we have a member of the Forest Station that loves to walk. We heard it earlier.
We shall see. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. Okay. Thank you all. And
Thank you.
we'll see what happens with the special meeting. If not, we'll see each other on May 9th. Thank you
All right.
all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ron.